Okay, so what type of work do I do? Um, I'm a business analyst, or currently a business specialist, where I analyze business processes um, and ensure that and come up with recommendations for the companies that I work for on how they can improve how they do things, their functions that they perform. And how that relates to the type 9s is you have to have a lot of patience because you deal with a lot of different stakeholders and different personalities. Um, you also have to deal with a lot of conflict resolution. Now, type 9s don't necessarily like conflict, so they try to keep the peace. So the way I engage people is in a very collaborative manner, and I found that assist with dealing with conflict, and it actually reduces the risk of conflict when I interact with people. Yeah, that's generally it.
The work I do and how it relates to my type, that question is a bit tricky because I never thought about it in terms of why I do what I do. With time, I kind of realized that it does, in a sense that I'm much people related. I like working with people. And even after I trained as a scientist, I didn't enjoy just to stay in the lab and the only thing that I do is just working with animals or fish or anything like that. So I started moving towards managing in the management field. And my type as a Enneagram 9, kind of the harmonizer, the person who's more about harmony. I've seen my role more as well in that, to be able to hold the various ideas that people will come and also help the group find commonality, without actually emphasizing the differences. And actually, yeah, so that comes to play quite a lot, yeah.
Since I can remember, I've never really expressed my anger. I'm not I don't have a volatile personality. I've got very high level of tolerance. So, when I'm under pressure or when I'm angered, especially in the heat of a conversation or argument, I tend to actually suppress my anger and take a step back. And the 1 to 10 counting actually helps for type 9s. And yeah, I found that assists with my calming nature, and that I sort of portray right through all the different aspects of my life. Yeah, so I don't really get angry. My wife gets me angry now and again, but I mean it's probably once a year or so. But she knows by now it's button super. So other than that, especially in a working environment or even a social environment, when you have heated debates, I generally tend to step back. And I think as a typical type 9, you want to prevent conflict. So you'd rather, sort of take a step back and check in where you're at. Is it really an issue for you to get angry about? And does it really mean anything to you? So, yeah, that's pretty much how I deal with anger.
My relationship with anger as a 9 is I suppress my anger, and I actually explode once in a while, mainly, particularly to my kids, when they really get me. It was quite interesting. We had a big function that I was coordinating around Marine Week. We had it in Durban, and in that we had a lot of interns, and then we were now to travel back to the airport, and this one particular girl kept on asking me one question. At least she asked 3 times the same question, and I kept on answering. Yeah, and it was interesting. So she says, Jimmy, where's the kumbi? And I said, no, it's behind. It's behind the building. We have to go out of the yard and go behind the building. Then a couple of seconds later, or almost a minute later, she asked the same question and I give her the answer. And then the third time she asked the same question, the time in between was quite short. And I went like, I said it is behind. And she was actually shocked that I responded that way. And she realized that she kept on asking that question because she was also not listening to the answer. And by that time I had reached my irritation point where I just kind of, so usually I suppress my anger so it never shows, but it was quite interesting to see when that explosion, in that sense. Yeah.
Each and every person has a different circumstance, so you can't judge a person based on a certain action or a certain decision that they've made. You need to understand the context where they're coming from. And I found that society tends to judge people very quickly for whatever reason. Now I've learned to reserve my judgment, and I think that's probably pretty much a type 9 attitude as well, where you, again, I think there's a level of conflict. You don't want to deal with conflict. However, I've learned to reserve judgment and reserve my assumptions that I've made until I gather the actual facts of a situation.
So they called a meeting for us to attend subsequently, and I thought, no, I thought, no, I'm not going. I don't want to go there. So, but now knowing that I can't not go because the meeting is called for all the middle managers and I need to be there. So I thought, but I'm annoyed about this. I'm actually angry about this. But then, as a 9, I need to suppress my anger because I need to be nice. The nice and the harmony, but that I need to maintain. So I decided, okay, I'll go to the meeting, but I'm angry inside. So, and then I actually went to the meeting knowing that inside of me there's that anger around this that I can't even express. I knew that I need to express, but I don't want to express it because then I'll almost like be out of character, so to speak. So I thought, but I was like almost this passive aggression. So I get into the meeting, they asked who has anything to share, and someone actually just nominates my name, says, oh, Jimmy will say something. And I said like, no, I don't have anything to say. And I could feel inside of me that I'm just angry. I had not worked with this. But because I was aware, there was a part of me that was wanting to understand the fact that as much as I suppress my anger, I have this passive aggression, and it's more of about a 12-year-old inside of me, so to speak, expressing himself. And I thought, no, man, I'm older than that. I need to and know what I want from the meeting as much as I know how I'm feeling about the meeting. So I need to make a choice around being older than my 12 passive-aggressive individual and be part of this meeting in order for me to get what I'm looking for. So that was possibly more now the integration of wanting to work with what I already do. But my normal way of doing would have been just remain sulky, or possibly not sulky, but I'll be nice externally and just not engage and just disengage. So in that day though, I then, brought the part of what I wanted to engage then kind of like didn't stay in my passive aggression.
I'm a very active listener. When people speak to me, I listen. I tend to observe. And I take in the surroundings as well, and I bring that into my final opinion. And what I found with people that I associate with or interact with is that there's not, at most cases, a lot of depth into what they say. Some people just say because they want to say something. Whereas I prefer to say something when I have something substantive to say. Otherwise, really, you defeat the purpose of providing value input or an opinion.
I noticed that when others are in conflict, I'm okay to assist them find themselves or find each other. But I struggle when conflict comes directly to me. And I think also just from being young, by then I didn't even know that I was a 9, but I've always, even from childhood, that I avoided conflict. My mom always used to say that even with my siblings, when I was younger, they would tease or want to beat me or play roughly with me, and then I'll say, I'll beat you, you know. But I'll never do. But they will always act, and I found the two of my siblings, they were quite expressive of what they felt, but I'll be the only one. You know, my mom used to say, they always took advantage of you, you know. So I think I grew up like that, and I think also it's kind of linked to the volatility that used to happen at home. I always felt I needed to be the pleaser, to be the compliant one, to make the family work.